Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jones with Veterans in Politics. Today we're going to have Brenda Flank. She is a candidate for Las Vegas City Council, Ward number 4. But before we get to our candidate, Jim, got any rants?
No, actually, I don't really have any rants today.
No.
Really?
Huh? Well, I just want to let folks know that we're doing the broadcast today because Saturday is New Year's.
New Year's, yeah.
And, you know, we're going to be home, eating turkey, maybe.
Yeah.
And bringing in New Year, 2022.
Yeah.
Lighting firecrackers, which I hate firecrackers. But you know, I want to let everybody know that I took the 2 Pfizer shots at the VA, and unfortunately, I caught I caught COVID, and let me tell you how it went. So I went to the VA, and I took the test, and a couple hours later, the technician called me up. He goes, Mr. Sanson, is this Steve Sanson? I'm like, yeah, this is Steve Sanson. Well, I just want to let you know that you tested positive for the coronavirus. Isolate yourself for 10 days and Merry Christmas to you, sir. I was like, holy crap.
Well, that's a hell of a Christmas present.
It was. But you know what? I was working out. I was still doing I isolated myself, but I was working out. I was still doing my normal day-to-day stuff that I do in the house.
Yeah.
Everybody in the house got sick. Not intentionally, but they got sick, and they're all recovered. So that was good. And the doctor called me, and he said that because I took the shots, it was eating up the virus. In his own words, that's what he was saying to me. Sure. But I was only actually sick for probably 2 days.
Yeah,
2 days, and after that I was fine. So.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, and this is a wooden table, by the way. Knock on wood. So I just want to let everybody know, yes, I had the shot, and yes, I had COVID, and it only lasted like 2 days tops. And I was still working out and doing my thing, isolating, of course. I'm wearing my mask, but other than that, I was good to go.
Good. But the other thing, besides the shots, and it was good that you got them, that worked in your advantage, and I want people to understand this, is those people that don't know you, you also take very good care of yourself. You eat right, you take all your vitamins, you follow up with your doctor consistently, you work out, you're very good about making sure you do the normal, like, hygiene stuff.
And I stay away from sick people.
Yeah, and you wash your hands thoroughly, and so, you know, I think the moral to the story is that you just make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah, and by the way, I doubled up on magnesium, zinc, C, D3, and echinacea. I doubled up on all those, and I was taking them like it was a Tootsie Roll.
Right.
I was eating those vitamins like crazy. Yeah. And, you know, I still maintain all that. Probably took 2 showers a day. Yeah. But there goes my water bill, although I don't have one. Well, I do have one, but I really don't have one.
Yeah.
But, you know, I tell people, if you catch corona, make sure if you get the symptoms were, folks, I'll tell you what my symptoms was. It was, first it was chronic fatigue, which that was bad. And then I lost my appetite. And, you know, we were at Nora's Italian restaurant, and I could get anything on the menu, and I wanted a soup and salad.
You said you were tired, not feeling good, and then you were like, you know, I lost my appetite. And I'm like, Steve lost his appetite?
Lost my appetite.
Yeah.
And then the second and the third and fourth thing, well, the first thing was the fatigue. The second thing was the loss of appetite. A little bit of stuffy nose, and it was a fever and a headache. So those were the symptoms. Those were my symptoms. And I took my vitamins and I still was exercising. You got to keep that blood moving, still was exercising, and it lasted 2 days. Tops.
That's awesome.
Tops. So, but now I'm out fancy free and conquering the world again. So we have
a big world.
It is a big world
to conquer for sure.
Miss Flank. So, Miss Flank, how are you today, man?
I am great. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much
for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you.
Tell us about you.
Just a little bit about me. I'm a native Las Vegan. Mm-hmm.
Born and raised?
Born and raised.
Oh, boy.
Yes. My parents came here in the early 50s. Boomtown.
Boom.
Yes. Nevada test site.
Oh, boy.
They were building.
Did they glow?
Ready to test. Well, my dad brought home goldfish this big.
Goldfish that big? Isn't goldfish about that big?
They're supposed to be, but they were up at the test site.
Oh, wow.
So they came, of course, for an opportunity to raise their family in a better life. Coming here from Louisiana, back in the 50s, you go where the opportunities are.
That's right.
And family, it was 9 of us.
Were you the youngest?
No, not quite. The youngest girl.
The youngest girl?
Youngest, yes.
Okay. How many brothers and sisters you have?
6. 6 brothers, 3 sisters with
boy.
me. So, nice big family. Grew up in a fairly conservative kind of household.
Right.
Went to church. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, which was good. Dad worked, provided for the family. We just had that conversation before we came on the air, talking about how things have changed so much. And kids in school, and with the parents being out of the home, sadly, families have to turn their kids over to the school district. And that's part of, I think, that mentality of, your kids are not your kids. They're our kids because you turned them over to us. So it wasn't like that, of course, growing up in the 70s. And had a good life. Our parents raised us right, and I didn't get politically active until the 2000s, but I was politically informed.
Right.
I changed my party affiliation from the one that, your parents. You do what your parents do. Yeah. My parents were Democrats.
Oh, boy.
Yes. They were JFK Democrats.
Oh, boy.
So a little bit different than Democrats today,
I was gonna say,
for sure. Not as
JFK Democrat is way different than today's
It's like
Democrats.
A moderate Republican, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they call him, rhino?
Well, maybe not a rhino, just have some things that aren't just staunch Republican.
Right.
But I became involved in the 2000s, but I changed my party affiliation in 1979.
Okay.
And
so
that was back in
longer than people been alive.
Yes, and I'm proud to say that. Jimmy Carter was in office. Ronald Reagan was running, and just his message about our country was important because you didn't grow up in the 70s, did you?
Yeah, I did.
So we know what it was like back in the 70s. Our country was not respected. Look at what happened with the hostages. And things were just awful. And Ronald Reagan had a positive message.
Yeah.
It was
Tear the
a
walls
message
down,
about
Gorbachev.
It was about loving our country and appreciating the greatness of this country.
Right.
That may not have been the words that he used back then, but the message was clear that we are good, decent people in this country, and we should appreciate what we have.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want him to represent me in the White House.
Yeah.
Now, I must confess, I did vote for Jimmy Carter.
Oh, stop that peanut eating guy.
It was my first presidential election. First time I voted for a Democrat, and the last time I voted for a presidential candidate that was a Democrat.
So you didn't care for Gerald Ford then?
No.
No.
I believe my first presidential check was for Ronald Reagan.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
okay.
When I
That
joined
was
the
in
military,
1980.
Ronald Reagan was the commander-in-chief.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a commander-in-chief that you could respect.
Yes.
And it was mutually, he respected the military and military respected him.
Well,
So-
Ronald Reagan was a Democrat, started out.
Yeah, well,
Anyways,
a lot
so-
of people started out as Democrats.
I
but
started out as an
think about-
independent.
Think about it, like we said earlier, Democrats back then are not what Democrats are today.
No.
And there's just no way I could be a part of the Democrat Party.
Okay.
So,
So, Miss Flank, why are you running for this Ward 4 City Council? Who's in there now, by the way?
who's in there now? Stavros Anthony is the current city councilman.
I like that guy.
Yes, and he represents our district well. I live in Sun City, Summerlin,
Okay.
and we love him up there in Sun City, Summerlin,
Why?
because he's done a great job. He's very responsive to the needs of seniors.
Did you seek his endorsement?
I did,
Okay.
but as you probably know,
You stayed
he's
out of it.
he's staying out, and he's also running for
Running for
lieutenant
LG.
governor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's okay. My community that I live in, of course, Ward 4 is now a really big district.
Okay.
Not necessarily in numbers so much, but in area and
Right. And
the
land.
real estate.
Yeah, they redistricted.
They
Did you lose
redistrict.
or did you gain any seats?
Well, I
any
gained some
constituents?
advantages. Yes,
Okay.
got about 8,000
Okay.
more voters.
Well, what are the boundary lines for Ward 4?
The new lines are, if you look at US 95 heading north, I guess that would be,
Going to Ward Centennial?
going towards Centennial.
Okay.
A lot of the area on the west side of 95.
Okay.
There used to be a little bit on the east, but now that is the dividing line.
Okay.
And then Lake Mead
Okay.
and the 215. So I guess if you kind of look at it like that, those are the major boundaries. Now, of course, not all of that area is Ward 4.
Yeah.
You know how the city is laid out with these pockets, county islands, and there's a huge one
I
right
live in a
there.
big pocket in
Yes.
Centennial. It's part of
Oh,
the
okay.
county, yeah.
So Ward 4 kind of wraps around that big county island
Yeah.
up there, which is nice. I'm looking forward to the challenge of expanding my perspective about the people in the ward,
Okay.
because there are a lot of new ones, and we're putting together a strategy, of course, as to how we're going to reach out to those new people, because they were in Ward 6,
Right.
which was Michelle Fiore's district. So
what is your platform? What do you want to, how do you want to see, what's your vision for Ward 4?
there are three things that concerns me right now. And of course, when you look at things, it's usually from your own perspective. And that's why it's important that you reach out to people, get engaged, see what's important to them.
Okay.
And in that process, you learn a lot about people and perhaps the things that you can do to address their concerns.
Okay.
So I have found that my concerns are their concerns, which is, number one, is crime. Now, of course, we all know that Metro can't stop crime.
Right.
We know what can stop crime, but Metro can't do that. But the part,
Stop crying.
you said it. You said it. I didn't say it, but we know. We know what can stop
Or a
crime.
woman with a gun.
Or- But we have to play our part too. What are the things that we can do in our community to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe to a certain extent? And then, of course, we have to make sure that Metro remains a police department and not turned into a social program. At this point, I don't think they're talking about that too much.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's not a discussion that's been had in this state or in our county about the police department and social workers. You've heard about these things like in Oregon, some in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, getting social workers to be, it's okay. Social workers probably do have a part to
like
play.
De-escalate a situation.
Yes. But as far as them actually being a force to protect you, that's not something that we can do. So we need to protect ourselves. We need to make sure that our police department is funded, and we need to support our police. There has been so much vitriol about the police.
So you plan to sit on, if you become a city council.
When I become city council.
When you become city council,
Yes.
you plan to sit on fiscal affairs committee?
I will sit on any committee, but that's part of, the council is so small. I mean, we only have 6 council people, and then the mayor sits there in the middle. So the responsibilities is for pretty much everything. You need to know about budgets and how things work and be responsible.
And buffering, zoning.
Yes. You have your planning commissioners and things like that, but it's incumbent on the city council person to be well informed, educated about issues, and not just be there just as an ambassador, because I look at that as being an ambassador for your community. Yeah, well, I'll be a junior ambassador for Ward 4. Right. So it's important that you know the functions of the city.
Right.
The second thing that concerns me is this, not necessarily the response to COVID, but the effects of what has happened in our community. What's happening with small businesses? They continue to struggle, even though to some extent they really haven't lifted enough of these restrictions. It's not a lockdown, but the things they do have locked businesses out of business.
Okay, so
they can't function because of things, people are not going to restaurants. They're not out doing the normal things that they would usually do. Right. So it's important that we try and get back to some sanity, some semblance of what is normal, and also support these small businesses, see what kinds of resources are available to help them get the resources that are necessary. I don't think that a lot of the businesses that have gone out of business would necessarily come back. But let's do what we can to support those businesses that may be struggling. And we know that there are a lot of businesses that still struggle, especially the small businesses.
So, Mrs. Flank, sorry I tried to interrupt you, and thank you for finishing. I apologize. The reason why I wanted to kind of follow up on your answer is because I want to make this point clear to viewers and listeners. You yourself have had COVID.
I have had COVID, and I've also been a small business owner. And I think...
If you're still advocating that we need to make sure that business is taken care of, there's a perception out there that people that are wanting regulations, some of these regulations that are being imposed by specifically the governor, that it's because they've never had COVID. They don't understand the struggle, but you obviously do. So how do you balance that?
Well, I understand the struggle, as you put it, from both perspectives. I've been a business owner, and being a small business can be a struggle. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
You understand, right?
Oh, yeah, we understand.
And then
Oh yeah, trust me, we understand.
and then you have a government that comes in and tells you what you cannot do, things that you need to do in order to be successful. I don't think that enough people in government have that kind of experience and background and understand anything about how businesses work.
Right.
And for me, that's an advantage. I understand how businesses work, what it takes to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And without those government interferences, I think that more businesses can be successful. Government has always had restrictions or regulations that they've put on businesses, and a lot of the times it's necessary, but then sometimes it's not, and it's a detriment. And that's one of the things we'll need to take a look at as well, is what kind of barriers exist now that keeps businesses either down or closed, or keep people from starting a new business. Because I think there are a lot of people out there that would like to venture, and then they take a look at what's actually required, and that could be
You got to jump through it.
right.
Yeah.
And some of them are on fire. It's like, no, I don't think so. I'll go and work for someone else. So supporting small businesses, helping them to recover is important. The third thing that concerns me, and this is, of course, from a personal perspective, patient advocacy after what has happened with this pandemic. You don't know what is happening until you've actually been there and experienced it. Sadly, I was in the hospital for 6 days.
Oh, wow. Did you get your shot?
I did not.
Okay.
And of course, that's, my decision. You kind of weigh the risk, right? You say, well, I'm healthy enough. I take care of myself. Mm-hmm. And if I get COVID, I think I can
pull through.
Yes, I can survive. And I was lucky, and I chose not to. I haven't had a vaccine. Whenever the last one my parents got for me, I had to get back in the 60s.
Did you get the flu vaccine?
Never have had a flu vaccine.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
So that experience in the hospital was just awful. And I laid there and I thought about people. Now, I was fortunate. I have family, people that, thank God for these phones, people that kept in contact. But then I think about people that are laying there in that hospital that doesn't have anyone, no one to advocate for them, no one to help them make decisions, medical decisions about things. And I think that that's something that we need to look at. So I'm becoming a patient advocate, I should say, to help people navigate and
Is that
get
like a power
through
of
that.
attorney for these folks?
No, it's about information.
Oh, so you wouldn't say pull the plug type deal.
Right. No. It's about getting information. And the
Okay.
fact that,
To the patient.
yes,
Gotcha.
isolation was just horrible. I was isolated for 6 days in the hospital, and I can't imagine.
So you
I'm
would
sure
not
there
do
were
good in
people-
solitary confinement.
I would not do good in solitary confinement. No, I think I would be banging my head against a wall or something. And the fact that there is that isolation, if you don't have family, you're like left to whatever there in the hospital. And I have to say that the services there at the hospital is, that need to be looked into as well.
They say humans are not built to be alone.
No, that's why Adam got Eve.
And he did.
Yes, he did. So we'll put it that
really
way.
good.
Yes,
Messed up the whole
we were. Yes,
cycle.
yes, and that's why you guys.
Now we got to wear clothes.
And that's why you have an Adam's apple. Okay. So those are
before women and men were walking around naked.
Yeah.
yes. Now we have to cover up.
Now we
right?
got to cover up.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing for other people because they don't want to see me without my clothes on.
But those are the things that concern me, and that's why I'm running.
Humor is my
That's why
thing.
I'm running, and
Well, why are you running?
I want to.
Well, say why you were running.
I just told you those three things.
Oh, okay.
That the,
I thought you said something else.
Yes, it's going to be like a summary of all those things. Okay. What it boils down to is in my senior community, Sun City, Summerlin, we are spoiled and we want good representation. We're willing to fight for it and vote for it. And I think that I'm the best person in the race to do
All three
that.
of those items that you list, how are you going to go about getting them?
Well, of course, with the business background that I have, like I said, I understand what the needs are. Things that we would need to look at with regards to regulations. Now, one thing that people also need to keep in mind and have a perspective on are the things that city council people can actually do. Because a lot of times people think that you can do things that you really can't do.
I'm glad you're already answering my next question.
Oh, okay.
So go ahead.
Because there are limits as to what a representative, and all, not just city council, people on the school board, for instance, there are things that they can't do that people think that they can, or people want to do. So to take a look at the overall business structure as far as business licensing, because that's what the city does. That is their primary function. Planning is also another thing that your city or your municipality is responsible for. You need to know how those things work. More importantly, you have to make sure that the people in your ward are informed and engaged and that you listen to what they have to say. Okay. And that's where I'm coming from with that. Information with regards to this patient advocacy, I want to just make that something that we discuss because it's important. You look at what COVID has done, not just to seniors, but to our kids, being locked out of school. I can't imagine these kids. They've, in essence, lost 2 years. 2 years of education, and not just what they would have learned in the classroom, but those experiences that relationships that they have with their peers. Yeah. You lose those things. Those aren't the kind of things you can get back. Yeah. It's when it's lost forever. Yeah. So looking at the whole spectrum of what COVID has done and what kind of information is out there. I was just at a meeting today, met a nice young man. He has a mental health. He's an advocate as well. Services for kids up to age 17. And I thought, wow, more people need to know about this. Everything pretty much is about business. Everything is about information. And we have to work together to make sure people have that information. Now, that's not to say this is all new or what, but I want to be part of that process to make sure it happens. Okay. Now, as far as Metro, I love my police department. I know what their function is. No illusions about what it is they can or cannot do. But it is important that it is so important that people understand that what it is a police can do.
Call from Las Vegas 35.
Should we wait for that?
I don't know what more is doing.
Las Vegas 352.
Is that crazy?
Yeah.
That is crazy. We just talked about the phone, didn't we?
I know.
So with regards to the police department, with us taking responsibility as well for what happens in our community. Sun City Summerlin has its own security. I'm going to use them as an example because that's where I live. They have their own security 24/7. These are volunteers that drive around our community if there's an issue or anything. I mean, you know, it's a senior community. If there's an issue, they call Metro. Recently, I'd say in the past year and a half, burglaries, robberies, all kinds of things are happening in our community. Crime skyrocketing. For a senior community, I mean, you know, we were in a panic. Had to contact Metro, say, hey, we need some presence in our community. Because, you know, the 80-year-old guy driving around in an electric vehicle, it's security to a certain extent. So we got that presence of police cars in our community. And you could see over time.
Crime went back down.
Yes. So it's important that we fund Metro, we support Metro, and make sure that they are out there. Just the presence, and everybody knows this. The presence of police is a deterrent.
I'll give
Right?
I'll give everybody a prime example of that. I'm not going to mention my previous employer, but every year around the holidays, specifically going into Christmas, Metro would actually park a police car right out front. There was no one in there, but they would park a police car out front. The year after they started doing that, petty theft, even just petty theft, went way down. Or look at Boulder City as a prime example. You know how they have that cop car always staged, like literally like a block after you enter into Boulder City? Like sometimes there's a police officer in the car, sometimes there's not. But everybody slows down as soon as they see that car.
It's a natural thing to do that. Yeah, it's a deterrent.
It's a natural deterrent.
And another thing now, I'm sure you guys have heard of the First Tuesday meetings that they have at the command stations.
Yeah.
For years, my husband and I would go. We kept up with things that were happening. Northwest Area Command Center was our command center in our community. And when we moved up to Sun City Summerlin, I kind of got out of the habit, even though Northwest was still our police station. We started going back, and I just recently went to one at Northwest. There were 5 people there.
Is the one on West Cheyenne?
The one on Cheyenne.
How far does your award go? Does it go past that?
Oh, yeah. It goes all the way up to Farm or Elkhorn.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, we got that county island there in the middle.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that...
Steve, I always said one day you were going to live on an island. Now you got it.
You live on an
County
island. A county island. I'm
But you know
familiar
what?
with
I don't
that.
have any beachfront property.
No beachfront, but a lot of dirt.
A lot of
A
dirt.
lot of dirt.
And horses.
And horses, yes, horse properties. But I was very disappointed to see that there were only 5 people there.
Wow.
How could there only be 5 people at a police station for a community? You know, they do this once a month.
Because everybody says, we have a gun, we're good.
Yeah, but not. We need to support our police department. And one of the things that one of the officers said was they were recruiting for Neighborhood Watch.
Okay.
That is something that we need to do. We need to watch our neighborhood. We need to be involved with that process. And that's one of the things, of course, I live in a senior community, so most people up there are pretty aware.
You guys have a neighborhood watch program, right?
Well, we have the security, and we have
with the
people.
big sign that says neighborhood watch, and you post it.
I've never seen one in Sun City, Summerlin.
Oh, really?
No, could be, but that's one of the things that I would hope that our community get more involved with.
You probably could ask Metro about that, because I remember when I was a long time ago, we had a neighborhood watch program where we got Metro involved, and we had big neighborhood watch signs all over the neighborhood.
They're recruiting. They need more people to say, yes, I'll be part of this program where you pull so many people together in your community. And they put the signs up and they train you things to do and things to look out for.
Right.
But 5 people at a first Tuesday is not good.
No. Right.
And one of the things, too, that I think that we've, and this was actually happening way before pre-COVID, like we were discussing with some stuff that was going on about how great technology is, but sometimes it fails you, right?
Right.
Well, my family moved here, too. I'll make this brief because I don't want it to be about me, but just listening to your story sounds so similar to mine. My family moved here in 1986 for the same reason. My dad was in construction. Construction was booming, came out for a better opportunity. And then in I think it was a year after I graduated, in 1996, they were going to purchase my current house, right? So anyway, long story short, the number one thing my dad did once they purchased the house, my dad walked the entire neighborhood. He literally went door to door and introduced himself and said, "Hi, I'm Randy. Nice to meet you. We just moved in." And got to know, like, the whole neighborhood knew my dad.
That's how you're supposed to do it.
Sadly, a lot of people, they don't engage with their neighbors. Now, I know my neighbors.
Yeah.
A few of them came over when the moving truck was at the house. Oh, I live across the street. I live next door. And say, what is?
So they gonna rob you.
What is? Oh yeah, the seniors up there.
About Stephen's security. Don't mess with this guy when it comes to security.
Yeah, they're scoping out
that antique art that you got there.
But just that engagement in your community. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being old-fashioned. Right. Those things worked back in those days, and people that have experienced that, they know that, and I guess it's something that young folks need to know and understand.
Exactly. So, Miss Flank, is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to cover?
No, I don't think so. We talked about my political perspective on things. One thing I could mention about me and the way I look at things, I don't look to infringe on anyone's rights or freedoms. That's important.
So you're a constitutionalist.
I am. One of the things that I've done for 13 years is a Constitution Day celebration here in Las Vegas. I think
you
come
invited me to a couple of.
Yeah.
You still do that at Charlie's Lakeside or no?
No.
Oh,
that was a political thing that they had going. We also, with the nonprofit that my husband and I set up all those years ago, we go into 5th grade classrooms and we talk to kids about the value and the importance of our Constitution, the founding of this country, and hopefully plant some seeds of what I say, seeds of liberty, where they'll have some basic understanding about why this country is what it is. And our foundation, why did we declare a declaration from the King, and understand that that was the only way that we could move forward, because the people in this country, in those 13 colonies, understood what freedom and liberty meant, what it stood for. And that's why there was a revolution. Kids nowadays are just so protected and so uninformed that they
They're
don't.
uninformed.
I'm going to use that
with
word.
Google
I'm
and
going to use that word because
Snapchat.
They're not exactly uninformed. They just don't
gonna use
inform
that word.
themselves on government issues.
I'm using that word. That no, they're not uninformed. They are miseducated. We got
good word.
people that are in the classroom that are not teaching kids the truth. There's an agenda behind the things that they are learning, and it's the agenda that the system is putting forward. So we have kids that are being taught to hate our country. They are being taught that this is an awful country. And what we want to do with our nonprofit is to teach kids the value of what they have.
Isn't it
Because there
hypocritical?
is no
But
appreciation.
isn't that hypocritical for someone to teach to hate the country but still live in
And
that
still
same
live in
country?
it and
Get
benefit
the
from it.
out.
Yes. They reap the benefits
Mm-hmm.
of the greatness of this country. I can't
But yet they tell you
understand.
how much they hate it.
Right.
Then why are they still living here? Right?
I've asked that
Right?
question.
Why are they still here?
And our kids, they are taking that from elementary school to junior high. And by the time they're in college, they are ripe for what these professors has to teach them. It's crazy. So those two things that I've been involved with for over a decade has to do with our freedom and our liberty and how we need to cherish that. We need to try and teach young people, even if you only get one. I would say over the past 10 or 12 years, we have probably spoken to maybe 8,000 or 9,000 kids because we would be in the classrooms from the start of the school year till the end of the school year talking about our country. Not necessarily how great it is. At some point, they understand that. And with the help of some really good attorneys and some judges here in town, we're able to present that at this, school district locations. A lot of people find that kind of hard to believe that we could actually go into a school district classroom and teach something like that. But it's all about the connections that you develop over the years, the relationships that you develop with teachers.
That guy that explained that cell phone.
Yeah, that's okay.
They didn't learn the first time they had it
That'll
on.
be up to you to
Coming
do
on
that.
again.
I don't have anything to do with that. So it's about the freedom and liberty, and anything that's going to infringe on that.
Right.
We had talked about that Badlands deal. To this day, I cannot figure out how a councilman or a woman could agree to disenfranchise that landowner from doing what he was already zoned to do. It's still a mystery.
That's why.
And it
That's
is
why the city
costing-
has to pay.
It is costing them tens of millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still running. I mean, it's still ringing.
So-
They haven't settled.
Here's the thing: is these politicians' ego? That's what messed this whole thing up. The ego got in their way. That's what happened.
From the start, it's like, ooh,
Ego. Sometimes
That
you need
is
to
ugly.
let the ego go and think about the betterment of the city and put yourself in that person's shoes, right? I mean, if you're zoned to do X, Y, and Z, who's anybody to tell you you can't, right?
private property.
I mean, that's why we have eminent domain and all that, right?
Private property rights. And he was not in the wrong for what he wanted to do. He had the right to build that on his land.
Right.
Liberty. It's all about the liberty, the ability to do things as a free person, to do things without government interference. That's what it boils down to. And I can promise that Brenda will stand on the side of what's right and on the side of liberty and not infringe.
All right. Well, Jim, you have anything else on this line?
No, other than just one last thing, it's not a question, it's a statement. We already had talked about it a little bit before. Miss Flank, sorry. I apologize. First off, when we were speaking earlier, I want to thank you, number one, for being willing to run for political office, because it's one of the toughest, bravest things you can do.
I'm finding it to be.
It really is. It takes a strong person to do it. And in today's political climate, even more so. And that's unfortunate, because that's why a lot of good people are willing to run for political office. But I also want to thank you for running for Las Vegas City Council in Ward 4. I think Las Vegas City Council is so important.
Yeah.
It really is. With some of the struggles that Steve and I have went through with trying to get this whole thing going, if it wasn't for the city council, specifically Councilman Knudsen and Stavros Anthony, have been lifesavers. I mean, they're very attentive. They've helped us navigate through some really tough things. And so running for city council is just amazing. And your story is great, and I agree with your platform. And I just want to thank you for spending time to talk to us on this Wednesday evening, and I hope you have a great New Year.
And you know what they say, all politics is local. Things that happen on a local level are the things that affect you the most. Right. What they do back there in D.C., yes, of course, it's going to affect you. More immediately is the things that your city councilman, what they do, your school board trustee, and the things that they decide to do. What kind of books are in your kids' classroom?
We're gonna have to cut you off, Ms. Flank.
Okay, don't get me started.
No, I don't want to get you started, but I think you already got started. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the program.
I appreciate it.
And if you could look in the camera, and Mark is going to zoom in on you, tell folks why they need to go to the voting booth and put you in office for City Council Ward number 4.
Okay.
And your point of contact.
And my point of contact,
right.
Yes, I'm Brenda Flank, and I am running for Las Vegas City Council Ward 4, and I can be reached anytime. I'll give you my personal cell number. You can leave a message or I'll answer. It's 702-286-8957. I also have a website, and it's my name, which is brendaflank.com. Pretty simple. I appreciate all of the listeners and viewers, and if you have any questions about anything, just reach out. My main focus is to actually represent our community. That is what a representative is supposed to do, the best interests of the people that live there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Flank, for coming on the program. Folks, that's Brenda Flank. She is a candidate for Las Vegas City Council Ward number 4. But before we end this podcast, I just wanted to express our condolence from the men and women of Veterans in Politics for Majority Leader Senator Harry Reid, who passed away yesterday at 82. Yeah. And Myrna Williams, former Clark County Commissioner, who passed away at 92. And I had the opportunity over the years to meet both of those folks. And although we didn't agree on everything, but they still represented our state. And I wanted to thank them for that and take a moment of silence. So this is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Until next time.